Welcome to another Wisdom Podcast with Hartmann. With us today, he is a teacher at Delft Center for Entrepreneurship. He's also into innovation very much. So we're going to talk about these two things today, teaching students entrepreneurship and innovation / technology most particularly. This podcast is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start, scale, or be invited to podcasts like this one, you can go to podpire.com. Welcome to the podcast. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about your day today.
Thank you. Well, for the last 20 years, I've been involved with the Delft University of Technology. And for the last 15 years, we have a Center for Entrepreneurship. And I teach a lot of entrepreneurship courses and I help students start companies, but predominantly on the basis of technology. So technology should be the core of what they're doing. Just because we're a university where we develop a lot of new technology, it makes sense that that should be the prime focus of your entrepreneurship teaching.
So why technology? We were discussing, you and I, about fruit stands and technology. Do you feel that technology is our calling as human beings? And if we want to have a greater impact on this planet Earth, we should pursue technology, just like the Homo sapiens pursued making fire and wheels?
No, it's more down to earth. I mean, if you want to start, a hair salon or a restaurant, it's been done so many times, and maybe you have a new twist, and you can really do it most likely on your own. However, if you have new technology, there's very specific problems that will be facing you. Your especially if it's disturbing the current status quo. And there's all kinds of mechanisms that are in play that I think I can help the students with that are particular to technology-based entrepreneurship, in addition to the general things that have to do with entrepreneurship. So it's a whole different game.
And what problems do your students often face when starting a technology company?
Okay, one of the things is, who owns the technology? Is there a patent? And if the patent is owned by the university, how does this work? How do we get access to the technology? Should we buy the patent? Should we get a license? Should we, not use the patent at all? And then specifically, whatever new solution you have, the incumbents in the market will try to make your life very difficult because you will be perceived as a threat. So, the way I usually try to explain it to students, you try to solve a problem and you think everybody's happy because but you have to realize that for every problem that exists, there are people, there are actors, there are companies that are happy with that problem. That's how they make their money because the problem is there. And if you take away the problem, if you solve the problem, you're taking away, you know, their profit margins. So you should be aware of that and you should, focus on what you can do against that. And if you learn from previous cases from the past, that can really give you an insight into, what will be happening to you. And I've seen, some of my students have started companies to disrupt a certain market. And the people who now dominate that market are not very happy. So you should be aware of that and you should be prepared to take action.
And aren't patents outdated? In Silicon Valley, when folks start a startup, I think patents is probably the least of their priorities.
Yes, but it sort of depends on what industry you are in, and the kind of money that you need. For instance, if you desperately need venture capital, venture capitalists will look at your patent portfolio, will look if you have anything worthwhile, anything to defend your current position. If you don't need venture capital, it's not so much of a problem. If you are in biotech, patents are just almost essential. But if you're more in consumer goods, maybe patents aren't the greatest thing because, there's a lot of misconception about patents. For one thing, it's not an insurance policy. If you have a patent, it just says that you have the exclusive right to use this technology. However, if somebody infringes your patent, you need to have deep pockets to go to court because otherwise they'll walk right over you. So patents are by no means the ideal thing, but we as a TU Delft just happen to have a lot of patents. So in many cases, development starts there.
So how do your students find a startup idea or a potential product market fit?
Well, there's two ways. Either they develop their own ideas, and we have courses with specific, well, let's call it flavors. So we have courses that focus on deep tech, whatever you want to call deep tech. We have courses on entrepreneurship that focus on artificial intelligence. We have focus on sustainability and energy. So in in a, in those courses, the students will develop their own ideas, and then we'll guide them into how to start a company based on their own ideas. My prize course, my most favorite course, takes the opposite approach, which is kind of unusual. Um, in this course, we start with a solution. We start with a patent. Just because TU Delft has a couple of hundred patents, um, I take these patents as a starting point, saying, wait a minute, so this has been developed for I don't know what reason, but consider it a solution. And the students will work with these patents in my course that's actually going on right now. The course is called Turning Technology into Business. And the whole idea is, given this technology, what can you do with it? What is there any kind of useful application you can think of for which there is a market? And the answer could easily be no, there's nothing you can do with it. And that's a perfectly good answer to that question. But of course, the most interesting answers will be if students do find a very nice application, do find an opportunity to start their own company. And that happens, every so often. And then they start with a solution, and what you have to do is find the problem that you can solve with it. And in many cases, at the end of the day, you don't even need the patent anymore. The patent brought you to the problem. The problem turned out to be slightly different from what you thought it was. The patent is not the solution, but you have found a problem that needs to be solved. And because our students are engineers, they're smart enough to come up with a solution, you know, in lieu of the patent.
Right. And then do they immediately try to seek for capital? How do they validate that product market fit?
Well, the most difficult thing for me is because I'm dealing with, engineers, almost engineers, students who want to become engineers. They have all the traits of engineers. They're smart. They don't like insecurities. They don't like, fuzzy stuff. So, their main focus is on making their product more perfect. And I need to take them away from that and have them do a product market fit, sending them out into you know, the angry real world where there's customers who are demanding. Um, so that's the hardest part, primary market research. They love to find stuff on the internet, secondary market research. Um, Talk to people. So, one of my favorite books, therefore, is, the mom test. It sounds like almost for these engineering students, a trivial book, but I say study it, read it cover to cover, and you'll find that it's much more difficult than you think it is. I can give you very, very extensive books on technology-based entrepreneurship, the MIT book with Byers and that's great. But the mom test it's the essence. Talk to people and find out what they're doing. observe them in their habitat, see their everyday, day-to-day behavior, and then find out if the problem that you thought you identified, for which you think you have a solution, is really what occupies their time and their mind. Very difficult for them.
Why did you decide to pursue a career as a teacher of entrepreneurship rather than become a full-time entrepreneur?
I missed that last word.
Yeah, why did you pursue a teaching entrepreneurship rather than doing entrepreneurship and being a full-time entrepreneur?
Oh, yeah, that's a funny thing. I don't think I have myself what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Uh, and I have to sort of take, sort of clarify my position to students. Is as if I'm teaching you how to swim, but I've never been in the swimming pool myself. Is that credible? I think it is. I think you can teach a lot of things that you're not very good at yourself. I mean, I used to program computers to play chess, and the computers were much better at playing chess than I was. I just knew how to teach them, how to instruct them to play chess. And the same with my students. I think I can teach them how to become entrepreneurs, even though I'm not an entrepreneur myself. So I think that's where my skill is rather than being an entrepreneur myself.
What is your way of teaching? How can you make sure that the information gets deep in there and most importantly gets battle tested?
Okay, well, I believe in this mantra, or this saying. I think it's by Chuang Guang, 300 before Christ, something like that, a Chinese philosopher who said, show me and I will forget. Um, Tell me and I may remember, but involve me and I will understand. So I try to involve them. I do everything by really doing it hands-on. I show the students something and they go like, yeah, 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 that's very easy. Then I give them a blank piece of paper and I say, now you do it. And then they feel that it's not that easy, whereas it seemed trivial, especially for very bright engineers. They know how to solve, you know, complicated differential equations, but, entrepreneurship seems trivial until they try it themselves. Then it's very, very hard. And it has to do with all the insecurities. They love to have numbers that add up to perfect numbers, but the behavior of customers is so unpredictable to them that it's scary. So I have to force them to do that and to talk to people and to explore the market. And you can see that the ones who can overcome these hurdles are the ones that are successful. And the ones that can't will not be entrepreneurs, but that's fine. Not everybody should and has to be an entrepreneur.
And is the outcome of your class them dropping out and going full-time into their startups?
Excuse me, can you
Is
repeat
the
that?
outcome of your class them dropping out of your class and going full-time into their startups?
Okay. I have this sort of, well, preference, to say the least. I do emphasize to them, finish your studies, get your degree. And that is why I focus on very advanced master students. They're almost finished. And I tell them, finish your degree and then start your company. You could do it at the same time, but one eats into the other, and entrepreneurship is really not a part-time thing. But you could start a new company 50 times, but you can only get your degree once, and this is the right time to get your degree. So please, please, please get your degree, don't drop out and start your company. Even though, they come with these examples, all these famous entrepreneurs who never finished their degrees, and look at how successful they became. And then they said, do you have any idea how many thousands and thousands of people didn't get that degree, started a company, and the company failed, and they didn't get a degree, and they don't have a company? So, don't be impressed by small number statistics. Finish your degree and then start your company. That's why, at the end of if they're sort of in the last year of their masters, it's almost there. It's within sight. So I particularly don't want them to fail their degree because that would give the university a bad name. Of course, if they're successful, nobody's talking about it. But all the dropouts who don't get a degree and don't have a company, that's not good for business. That's not good for reputation.
What is the use of an entrepreneurship degree? Can it be used productively in 2023?
That's the whole thing. We used to have a special annotation. You get your degree, and then if you did enough entrepreneurship courses, you would get a special annotation, entrepreneurship annotation. Look, you got all these courses in entrepreneurship. And then later we realized this is kind of strange because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you don't need an annotation, that degree. And if you go work for corporate, they look at your degree and the annotation, they go like, why do you have all these entrepreneurship annotations, if you're going to work for us? So it's either or. It didn't serve any real purpose. So excuse me. But I think it's an enrichment. You should be an engineer, but you should widen your field of interest. And entrepreneurship is one way of doing that. And for some of them, it means, yes, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, start my own company with my own idea. And of course, it's this whole thing that resonates well with students, saying, if you start your own company, um, you're going to realize you're trying to realize your own dream. Yet, if you work for corporate, somebody's going to hire you to realize their dream. But hey, you get a monthly paycheck, and it's nice. Um, on the other hand, entrepreneurship is definitely not for everyone, and I'm of course the prime example. I'm not an entrepreneur myself. You have to have the guts, you have to have the stamina, you have to have the persistence, willing to take the risk, and that's not for everybody. So yes, do try and taste, and in our courses, get a feeling whether it's the thing for you or it's not. So in a sense, sometimes it's almost like a litmus test. If you find out you're not entrepreneurship material, that's a valuable lesson too. But I've seen students who never thought of becoming an entrepreneur, and they just got the flavor for it, and they started their own company, and they're very happy. And otherwise, they would have never ever considered starting their own companies.
What do you feel the Netherlands have in terms of international competitiveness?
Well, we're getting better. It used to be pretty bad. First of all, the Netherlands, like many European countries, have this tendency to equalize. If somebody's very, very successful, people go like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to be better than we are. You're not supposed to make a lot of money with your company, not have a very successful company. That's not right. That's changing a bit. Um, on the other hand, there was this thing, if you were an entrepreneur and you failed, then you were a loser. And the next time you wanted to start a company, there would be so many barriers because you had a record and you couldn't get a loan, and everybody was sort of, you failed. So and then I think more the Anglo-Saxon attitude entered the Netherlands. Where it's clearly, if you in the United States, if you start a company and you fail and you start again, people consider you somebody with experience. The second time, it won't happen to you again. I mean, you're not a masochist. You're not there to fail again. You're experienced, so you'll do better. And I think that attitude is changing and coming to the Netherlands as well. And we're, because we have more and more successful entrepreneurs, people are looking up to them, saying, yeah, that this is really good, and it's an active career choice, and we can do it too. So that's really motivational for students looking at, a student entrepreneur. and looking at them saying, wait a minute, this guy or this lady, he or she sat in the same lecture room that I'm sitting in now 5 years ago, and now they have their own company. If they can do it, I can do it. I think that's sort of an attitude that resonates well with Dutch people.
What will be your top 3 objectives for next year?
No, that's a good question. My top 3 objectives. Well, um, get more students to realize that entrepreneurship is really like a third career option. I mean, when I was a student, I studied astronomy, and of course that's sort of a rare case. But if you do an exact study, whether it's mechanical engineering or civil engineering, there used to be two choices. Either you stayed in academia and you did research and you worked at the university, and that's fine, or you worked for a nice corporate company. The third option, starting your own company, that didn't exist way back when. Of course, it did exist, but it wasn't prominent. It wasn't encouraged. There were no courses. And then, especially in the last 20 years, that has become a very serious option. So I want more and more students to realize that that's a serious option of starting your own company. So that's one. Two would be to sort of spread my methodology of how I start with a solution and have students look for the problem that fits the solution, to spread that more in the academic community. And the third would be finding more time to read more interesting books on entrepreneurship.
Right. And where can people find out more about you, that
Excuse me, do people how?
where can people find out more about you?
Okay, well, if they go to dce.tudelft.nl, that's our Delft Center for Entrepreneurship website, that has a short bio of me and the courses that I teach. There's a Dutch Wikipedia page. Using Google Translate, you can read more about that. I've written some books and I've published, many articles. So I'm in the fortunate position that I have a rather unusual name. So if you Google my name, you'll find out all about me. If you're Jim Jones, good luck people finding the exact right Jim Jones. But in my case, it's easier.
That was another Founder Wisdom podcast with Charles Cormier.